An invocation to Andal. This is by Sri Vedanta Deshikar. It's the first verse of the Goda Stuti. Shri Vishnu Chitta Kulanandana Kalpavallim Shri Rangaraja Harichandana Yoga Drishyam Sakshat Kshamam Karunaya Kamalamivanyam Kodam Ananya Sharanamaham Prapadye. Briefly translated, it means Vedanta Deshikan, the Vaishnavite philosopher, describes Goda, later known as Andal, as a creeper belonging to the clan of Sri Vishnu Chitta. He also describes her as the sandalwood creeper around her lord Sri Ranganatha. And a basic Vaishnavite tenet, he says, I surrender to you and to you alone, and may you protect me. If you've grown up in Tamil Nadu, like I did, Sthala Purana is something so familiar to each of us, especially if you are a regular temple goer. Whenever I would visit to a temple, make a visit to a temple, which was as early as I could remember, when the priest would do an arati, he would recite the Sthala Purana, or the story of the temple, the sacrality of the site. At that point, and even today, there did not arise in me any questions of chronology, any questions of, is this true? Where is the evidence? Where is the epigraphic evidence? Where is the text? Instead, then and now, I was filled with a sense of wonder, with a sense of awe, with a sense of mystery, with a sense of magic, which essentially is what the mystic path is all about, which is what the spiritual path is all about. It's a sense of mystery, a sense of wonder, it's a sense of awe. And sometimes I feel so limited by having to convey all this in a 10-minute presentation.
That needs to be experienced.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is no such...
They're feeling you right now.
Thank you. Sthala Purana, Sthala, Samskritam, place and the story of the place. And why Srivilliputturu, which is again very close to where I live. I live in Madurai, and Srivilliputturu is just 75 kilometers by road. It happens to be the birthplace of two Vaishnavite Alvars, Vishnu Chittan, widely known as Periyalvar, and his daughter, Kodai or Goda, later known as Andal. I'm filled with a sense of sadness because I just feel most people outside Tamil Nadu, forget even South India, have hardly heard of Andal. I was just having a discussion, a brief chat with Sudhirji, and he said usually people outside Tamil Nadu have heard of Andal if you sit for the UPSC exam. Andal is the Vaishnavite, one mark tick. But she happens to be a 9th century Vaishnavite poet, the first woman bhakti poet of the country. And South India, as some of us are aware, has been the cradle of the bhakti movement, both in the Shaivite tradition as well as the Vaishnavite tradition. In the Shaivite tradition, we have the 64 Nayanmas, and in the Vaishnavite tradition, we have the 12 Alvars. Even the name itself is so significant. Someone who is immersed in their deep love for a personal God. Bhakti to me is immersion. It's devotion, love, all right, but a devotion and love immersed, soaked in a quest for that transcendental union with the divine. Srivilliputturu, the Sthala Purana of Srivilliputturu is rooted in antiquity. It's a multi-tiered narrative, so permit me to unpack this in the few minutes I have. The site first finds mention in the Varaha Purana. Vishnu, after the Varaha avatar, after he killed Hiranyaksha, the Asura, took shelter in Srivilliputturu, along with Bhudevi, whom he rescued from the bottom of the ocean. And interestingly, when you travel by road from Madurai to Srivilliputturu, it's at the foothills of the Western Ghats. You have beautiful green, verdant fields, like a green carpet swaying in the breeze, and in the distance you have the hillocks scalloping the fields. And it's no wonder that in the Varaha Puranam, this place is known as Shenpagaranyam. And interestingly, the grizzled wildlife sanctuary is situated in Srivilliputturu. And then later, maybe sometime in around the 7th or 8th century CE, Villi and Kandan were two local chieftains who happened to live around this area. And Villi and Kandan were brothers, and Kandan happened to be killed by an Asura. And Villi was distraught, and Vishnu appeared to him in a dream and told him that he could be found beside a banyan tree, resting in the Shaina Tirukolam, that is Vishnu in the reclining posture. And he was directed to go find the deity, and he found the deity at the bottom of a banyan tree with lots of gold coins, and he was instructed to build a temple. And that's how this temple, the main shrine, that is the Mulavar Sannidhi as we call it, the principal deity of Srivilliputturu, happens to be Vatapatrashayi, that is Vishnu in the reclining form. And then of course, no mention of Srivilliputturu is complete without Andal. Vishnu Chittan, name itself is very significant, someone whose mind was eternally dwelt on Vishnu, found this little girl as a 5-year-old girl in the Nandavanam, in the sacred grove, when he was plucking the basil leaves. And he named her Kodai, she of the fragrant tresses. And this is the interesting story. Every day, Periyarvar would make a tulsi garland for Sri Vatapatrashayi. And one day he discovered Goda, young girl, just a 5-year-old girl, wearing the garland and admiring herself in the well, which is even today in the midst of the temple. So this was an act of ritual transgression. It could also be seen as an act of devotion. And he reprimanded her, and he said this cannot be done. But that night, the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said he would henceforth wear only the garland worn by Kodai. And for this, her father named her Chudi Kurtavan, she who gave the garland to the Lord, the garland which she had worn. And the entire story of Andal is her journey from Kodai to Andal. And as we all know, later Kodai is apotheosized. She is raised to the status of a divine consort, Vishnu's divine consort. Interestingly, the story goes that after the Varaha avatar, Bhudevi, Vishnu's consort, told him that she would like to be reborn on earth as the greatest devotee of the Lord, because it's only in an earthly form can you experience the bliss and joy of transcendental divine union. So Vishnu granted her request, and she was reborn as Goda, who later becomes Andal. Andal's bhakti is something to be experienced. I don't think I can do any justice to Andal's bhakti intellectually. Two of her greatest works, Tirupavai, collection of 30 verses, which is the path to Krishna, and Nachiyar Tirumozhi, which is sacred songs, roughly translated into as sacred songs of the lady. What do we find most in these two poems? Sharanagati, or to the divine in a personal form. I'm not very comfortable with the word surrender, because it seems very militaristic to me, but I guess that's the closest we can come to it. So it's Sharanagati to the divine. It's Atma Nivedanam. In the 9 forms of bhakti delineated in the Bhagavata Purana, Atma Nivedanam is the highest. In Sharanagati, you don't surrender in installments. You surrender all of yourself. You surrender the ego. So Sharanagati is all or none. Either you surrender completely or you don't. And it's a very embodied love. If you get a chance to engage with Andal's poetry, it's a poetry which is very rooted in the body. It's a very kind of deeply embodied love. And the dominant emotion in Andal's poetry is Madhurya Bhava, yearning and uniting with the divine. And Vaishnava Bhakti poetry is all about Salabhya, ease of access. The Vaishnavite Bhakti poets have conceived of the an intimate, deeply personal relationship with the divine. It could be as a lover, it could be as a friend, it could be as a servant. There are many, many various forms, but in Andal, she sees herself as the bride of the beloved. It's Madhurya Bhava, and in Nachiyar Tirumuri especially, you have the pangs, the viraha, the pangs of being separated from the divine and her yearning to be united with him. And one of my favorite verses from the Nachiyar Tirumuri is Karpuram Narumo, where she addresses the conch of the Lord. And she says, I envy you because of your intimacy to the Lord. You're so close to the Lord, you rest on his handsome shoulders, and you also can feel the smell of it, the taste of his mouth. Does it smell as sweet as camphor, or does it smell as sweet as a flower? Tell me, because I want to know, because I cannot experience what you are experiencing. Yeah, so at the end of it, I'd just like to briefly, in a line, sum up that to me, Srivilliputturu and Andal, the Sthala Purana, is of immense significance because this had a huge influence on the Vaishnavite Acharya Ramanuja, who, as you heard Professor Kapoor succinctly put it this morning, systematized the essence of Bhakti, Vaishnavite Bhakti traditions. And from then on, it becomes a pan-Indian, or should I say, a pan-Bharata literary, spiritual, aesthetic, cultural movement. And the nucleus of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, which is the southern branch of Vaishnavism, begins here, and that sows the seed for Vaishnava Bhakti movement throughout the country. And it all begins from a little place called Srivilliputturu and the surrounding other temples in and around that area in Tamil Nadu. Thank you very much.